Hey everyone, Juan Manzo, Director of Education Community Programs at American Conservatory Theater. Nan, I'm so excited to be joining you today and have this conversation. I think Patrick is gonna be joining us as well. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing in making opportunities accessible to neurodiverse populations. I think that this is a group that's often overlooked when we're having conversations around equity and access to the arts. So I commend you on your work. In thinking about accessibility and inclusion when it comes to art making, something that I've heard art instructors say in the past is that it feels like it's so much more work to have differentiated strategies for the classroom. And I was wondering what you would say to someone who thinks that it's too much work to have differentiation as a part of their lesson planning in an art making class.
Boy, I would say, first off, don't underestimate what you can do with very small changes to your thinking. Don't let anything get in your way in terms of where you want to take it. The kids I've worked with, I really have, in the past few years especially, had a real range of learning abilities. And yet, with keeping in mind the end goal, and I was charged with, my end goal was to create an enjoyment of art for these kids. Well, you could ask for more than that. Knowing that that was my reason for teaching and for being in my position enabled me to really open doors in a lot of ways, I think, for kids. I will say that thinking about having that aha moment of UDL and pre-thinking some of the issues that came up rather than well, I was going to say just being a good listener, but rather than dealing with things on the fly, but backing up and thinking, wait a minute, you know this is going to happen if you're presenting these certain things.
Yeah, that's, I think, in the end, right, having taken time to think about some of this in advance makes your life easier as an educator and just leads to greater engagement, right? So it's one of the values of UDL that I think are really important. Going, kind of mirroring some of the other questions that have come up already and with the other presenters, how are you shifting your practice going into the quarantine and sheltering in place? And I don't know if you're doing any virtual instruction, but how are you making accommodations for neurodiverse students in this new situation that we're in?
Yeah, I am teaching, and it is interesting. Watching my video again made me feel like how long ago that was, in that not only are we dealing with this odd person-to-person communication we now have, I'm also not having the cues of a kid being puzzled as easily. I'm not seeing a blank sheet of paper untouched as quickly. So there are those sorts of layers. I am working with both Zoom and Google Meet to work with kids. I'm also have been trying to be extremely mindful that they are now working in their own homes. So perhaps my suggesting that they get out the food coloring and start splatting might not be so acceptable as it was my way of working in the classroom. I really encouraged a lot of experimentation, and I had to ratchet back some of that thinking. And the added layer of, we went immediate to online learning. The kids went home on a Monday and we started on a Wednesday. There was no time to send materials home. So I'm also working with, hey, today we're going to work on a drawing. If you have crayons, it's okay. If you have colored pencils, it's okay. So it's a broader way of thinking. my curriculum planning, there are two layers there. Virtually the school I'm teaching with is closing this year. So my plan had been to pull out every last cool thing I had saved up over the years and do that for the last 3 months. You know, bubble painting, and that's not a good example, but all the clay you could ever want to play with and all that stuff. And that all went by the wayside really suddenly. And I kind of lost my train of thought there. But not only then are we rethinking, am I rethinking how I'm going to teach, I am also, I wrote down Michelle's words, working a lot with the social emotional wellness of these kids who are losing their safe place that has been a good place for them to learn for many, some of them K through 8, and they're suddenly going out, not suddenly, but I found out about this right before I gave my presentation for Curriculum Slam, that these kids are being uprooted in some respect, and then to have the COVID-19 quarantine come on top of that. I'm doing a lot more standing back and listening and allowing a lot more social well, not allowing a lot more social interaction, I always did, but being really aware that right now perhaps my role is less about, you know, we're making art, but we're also listening, we're also providing yet another safe space.
Great. Thank you. There's nothing like a global pandemic to force you to meet students where they're at, right? You have no choice.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass it on to Patrick. Patrick, do you have a question that you'd like to ask?
Sure. Kind of building on what you've been talking about. So it seems like universal design, I was thinking about it when I was hearing your presentation, is so relevant right now, because I understand that that Zoom as a teaching mechanism for students, the Zoom classes, or trying to have class held, you know, where everyone is present at the same time, really hasn't been working that well. My friends who are not arts teachers, but regular teachers, you know, have said that it's just difficult to have class, that students seem disconnected. You know, a third of students are there every day. Its attendance is really difficult. I think a lot of the problems might be that this concept of everyone being able to be on a Zoom, you know, doesn't take into account students who are in more vulnerable situations. So I was wondering if you had any ideas of other ways to conduct arts education remotely that doesn't involve everyone having to be present on a live kind of Zoom chat at the same time.
Part of my initial regrouping was to send out the same response a lot of educators I've seen do, send out choice board sort of sheets where kids would have sort of a bingo board set of prompts to work at independently. I also did some videos that went home with letters to parents saying, this is what this contains. I'm not demanding you use this, but I hope it will be a tool that you can enjoy and maybe enjoy together. I did just some reading of stories in that way to be able to reach out to the kids. I didn't ever get a solid feeling of how that went. There was very little feedback. It went out and there was a big void coming back. Having said that, yes, Patrick, it's been very up and down. I'm getting great attendance, although I'm getting those students that we are to be doing a lot of drawing. We are to be doing a drawing prompt, but I'm seeing eyes here. They're playing video games, or they're chatting with their friends, so they're there, but they're not. I have rethought some things in sort of the manner that you described too, quicker game-like things where I'm demanding quick response, I'm keeping score, not only to kind of up the level, but also to use it as an exit ticket strategy to actually know they were engaged, because it's really tough to tell sometimes. I mean, it's tough to tell live in the classroom, but
Right.
very, very complicated, I think, via this platform. I've also discovered I'm very comfortable with technology. I always thought I do a lot of pre-videotaping of lessons. In the classroom, I used it so I could pass out all the equipment while I was giving my demonstration. I am a Zoomophobic person. I have not ever had so many troubles with something. So not only trying to figure out a new way to deal with things, but also it's a constant fumble for me, and I don't know why, but it's flawed.
So something that we're experiencing at ACT, we have a program that also works with a neurodiverse population. And we have found that it's really important to be able to also engage the family, because they might need that extra support in order just to be able to log on. I was wondering how you're engaging parents or other family members to support virtual learning, or if that's something that you've had a chance to explore in this process.
I have not personally done a lot of it, but our community is a small one. It also, for the most part, is, I'm just drawing a blank. It's a community that is pretty savvy to technology. We've had a lot of parents come in and help support the transition, how to best post where a link should be, how to best make this as seamless as possible. So I think from what you have described, I think we've gotten as much support from the parents in terms of figuring things out as the kids. Now, there are those students that have had a really rocky time of it, and we've been so parent and family dependent on helping support the access to this learning. And I don't envy any parent trying to do that right now. It's tricky. We have not come up with any great solutions. A parent did guide us through making sure things were on Google Calendar so that each kid had a single source point to go to throughout his day, his or her day, and that was really helpful.
Great. Well, Nan, thank you so much for all of the work that you do, and again, for bringing some light into the needs of the specific community. I really commend you on all of your efforts. And with that said, I'm going to pass it back on to Todd.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Patrick.